Hello, today we are going to discuss about permit to work, in short PTW. So this is a very important system in safety management system. It helps us to oversee all the activities and to control all the activities to ensure safe working and smooth workflow in our projects. So today we are going to discuss about what is this permit to work system, what are the prerequisites, and what is the workflow, and how to design permit to work system, and what are the considerations that we should take in order to design this permit to work systems. Okay, so we'll head into this topic. So first, why it is required, why this permit to work system is required? It is required to control the activities in our projects or in our work site. Okay, and secondly, it allows smooth functioning of all activities, okay, in our projects. So how it will allow smooth functioning of projects? We know if you have issued a permit to one particular person and they are working at a particular location, if we issue another permit for the same location, then there will be some clash. Okay, there will be some simultaneous operations and there will be excess hazards. Okay, so apart from that, it will help us in following safety protocols. Okay, even in permit we can control or we can oversee the implementation of all the safety protocols as listed in your HERA and method statement, and to make sure all the working parties will follow the safe protocols, and it is a structured way of working. This permit to work system is a structured way of working, okay, where there is a very good control of your working procedures. So there is a proper planning, and certainly there will be better control, there will be better coordination, communication. So that is the reason PTW is given very good importance. Now we will see about the workflow. So in order to design the permit to work system or in order to implement the work system, you need to understand the workflow. So generally, when we are discussing about the workflow, we will have two important parties. One is client and second one is contractor. Certainly, who is a client? A person or a company or an organization owning the premises or the business is a client. In most of the cases, they are hiring contractors, or there are cases where the client themselves has the sufficient manpower to execute a particular task, or in some cases they will hire a contractor to complete the particular task. Okay, so in this example we will be taking some building is owned by an X company. Let's say a building is owned by an X company. So in a building, okay, which is owned by X company, they are the client, and they will have several activities. So what are the activities they will have? They need HVAC maintenance. Okay, HVAC is an AC system that will have to be maintained periodically. So they have this activity, and second thing is they will have housekeeping. Okay, and they need this firefighting maintenance because they have all the equipments installed. They need periodic inspection, testing of this particular equipment. If there is any breakdown, they need to maintain it. And apart from that, they have AC maintenance. Okay, and they even have this electrical maintenance. Okay, so apart from this there are other activities like security and all, but yeah, we'll just keep this as a example activities for our example. Okay, so now this X company cannot perform all these activities unless until they have their own manpower. So normally companies doesn't do that. They don't hire separate maintenance people for all these activities. Instead they hire contractors, so that will become cheap and easy, and they get very good professionals to do the task. So instead of hiring people for separate projects, they hire a contractor for all these activities. Okay, so when they are hiring these particular activities, the contractor doesn't know the safety protocols followed by the client. They doesn't know the safety protocols followed by the client. So that is the reason, okay, they all while hiring a contractor, they specify in their contract terms that they have to follow the client's safety protocols and the permit to work systems which is already in existence. Okay, so here the client is the one who is giving the job to contractor. So in client, okay, who will give the job and how this job is assigned and all that we will see. But before that, we will see why maintenance is required, when maintenance is required. Maintenance is periodically required, or if any equipment fails then we need immediate maintenance, or if there is a new installation then we require maintenance people. Okay, so so how these activities are initiated. Normally what happens in a company, it's not like okay, any person can call in a contractor and get the job done. It's not like that, right? So how will the work be initiated? So in this company, okay, we have, or in the client side, we have a general manager or the manager who is the head of the particular organization. Under that manager, we will have engineers. Under the engineers, we have other team like workers and all. Even in engineering sections, we have different sections like electrical maintenance, mechanical maintenance, AC maintenance. We might have engineers or we might not have, but yeah, in general structure, I'm just giving as an example that under GM, if there is an engineer who is overseeing all these activities, okay, so this engineer will have a schedule of as to which equipment has to be maintained at what time. So they will have their own maintenance logs, okay, or which is already preset periodically. So when the period exceeds, immediately they will call in a contractor, or they have to initiate maintenance for that particular equipment. So here it is not like GM has to tell engineer all the time that have you done this maintenance or not, because already the schedule is planned, they have all the resources planned, the money is planned, the time is planned, the duration of maintenance is planned. So engineer has to initiate that particular activity upon the given period of time. Okay, so here he cannot directly initiate an activity because everything is interlinked with amounts, with the payments, right? So here upon so what happens here is when there is a due, okay, when if any equipment is under due for maintenance. I'm just taking this building as an example in a maintenance of example. Remember, if you are going into industry, there are many other activities that comes into play. So this is just an example for your understanding. So we will see how the work is initiated and what is the workflow. Okay. Okay, so now here engineer always keeps track of the equipment that has to be maintained. Okay, so here the engineer will initiate activity and he will request for his GM to initiate the work for a particular maintenance. So he will be the requesting authority to initiate the work, and GM has the responsibility of initiating the work because he seeks it as important, and according to schedule, if according to schedule it has to be done, but due to some other circumstances he might initiate the work or he might defer that particular maintenance. So once the GM initiate the work, the requesting party, which is the engineering section, will assign the work to a contractor to start the work. So before starting the work, all the guidelines are given to the contractor related to what are the procedures they have to follow, what is the method statement they have to follow, what type of precautions they have to take while working. So the contract will be given to the particular party based on this, based on the guidelines that they have to follow while they are working at particular site. Okay. Now here I am just taking an example where engineer gives work to contractor, but there are other protocols that will be followed in a company, but that is just, this is just an example. So keep in mind that your company will have your own regulations that you will have to work with. Okay, so once the contractor is called in to start the work, okay, so engineer will ensure that the work is finished properly. So once the contractor is called in to start the work, they will start the work, finish it or finish the work. So engineer will ensure the work is finished properly, and then he will initiate closing, okay, or work completion to GM. Okay, because GM is the one who has initiated the work, he should have the knowledge of completion of activity as well. Then only the payments will be released, or else how they will release the payments, right? So once this completion of work is initiated, GM will verify if the work is completed, or he will assign another person to check for the quality or the completion of work, and then he will initiate the release of payment. So this is one way or the simplest way of looking at a workflow. Okay. So according to this particular workflow, I mean with the scenario that we have discussed, we are going to initiate a or we are going to design a permit to work system. Okay, so here we are having three parties. Okay, when we have discussed regarding this workflow, we are having three parties. First party is the initiator or the approver who approves the permit to work, and second party is the requester, he is the engineer who requests for the work to initiate. And third is the working party. Working party is the contractor or some gang or some work team from the client itself. Okay, it can be contractor, it can be team from the contractor itself. Okay, so these are the three parties involved in this particular example, in this particular workflow. So if this is the case, we need to take these three parties into consideration, and then we have to we have to initiate our we have to create a permit to work system. So here the responsibility of contractor or the working party is to raise the permit, okay, because they are the ones who has been given the job. So contractor, once he is at site, he will raise the permit. He will raise the permit and give it to the requesting authority. So requesting authority, engineer, he will collect that particular permit, okay, and he will check if all the requirements for doing this particular work is met or not. So this engineer will check whether all the precautions as listed in the contractual requirements is met or not, whether all the safety protocols has been identified, hazards been identified, risk has been assessed, method statement is okay, whether they have got appropriate tools, inspection is done. he will check all the requirements are met, and then he will give the raised permit to GM, and he will be waiting for that approval. Okay, so GM, he knows that he has initiated the work. He will ask engineer if the requirements are met. If engineer says yeah, requirements are met, then he will approve that particular permit. Once the permit is approved, then only we can start any work. Without permit there is no activity, or without permit there is no work, no matter what happens. Okay, so once the permit is approved, then again engineer will check if all the signatures has been completed and whether the work location is good to go for the contractor to work. Okay, so that engineer will take care and again hand over the hand over the permit to contractor. Okay, so this is how the parties involved has their own responsibilities in permit to work system. Okay, so contractor will raise a permit, engineer will check if the requirements are met, okay, as a requesting authority, and GM will approve it. So GM is the approver, engineer will check, and contractor will work on the permit. Okay, so this is the permit flow. Okay, so this is how the permit will move from one department to other department. So now we have discussed, okay, we have whatever we have discussed, it is for issuing the permit. So issuing authority is the GM, and he will issue the permit. Once the permit is issued, then only they can start the activity. Now once the activity is over, what we will do? Okay, so once the permit is approved, again it goes back to engineer and it goes back to contractor. See, this is a workflow, it's always circular, it is always closed. Okay, so where it has started, it has to go back. Okay, permit, how was the area before opening the permit, while closing the permit, after work is completed, the area has to be back to normal and it has to be safe for further operations. Okay, so all these three parties, who are the three parties? Issuing party, receiving party, work execution party are the authorized signatories in the permit to work system. So all these three signs should be made available, in the particular PTW, and even this can be used for legal purposes. If there is any accident or an incident, this permit to work can be considered as legal document. So here in contractor side, we have two other people who are trained for the client's permit to work system. They are called permit originator and permit holder. Permit originator is the one who has a complete idea of the work procedures. He will originate or he will initiate the permit, where the permit holder will hold the permit. He will be of supervisory category. Why we need permit holder? Because without permit at site, there is no activity. So permit has to be available at all the times. Inside has to be made available at site at all the times. So if there is no permit or no supervisor, there will be no work activity in that particular area. Okay, so all these particular authorized signatories, okay, has their own roles and responsibilities in PTW. They will be trained on those particular roles and responsibilities accordingly. Okay, so a stringent procedure or a protocol has to be made according to this workflow to make sure that everyone follows the permit to work system. Okay, so whatever we have discussed, this flow, okay, before opening the permit will be originated by permit originator. It will be given to permit receiver for checking for engineer, and then it will be sent to issuing authority. Once the issuing authority issues a permit, it will be given back to receiver. Receiver will check if all the signatures are there. If issuing authority will add up some comments if he thinks that extra safety precautions are required, then he will check that. He will give to permit originator. He will take approval from originator stating that these are other requirements that has to be met as per the site condition. Okay, once these are met, then the permit originator will give the permit to permit holder, and they will start the work. So this is how the work is initiated after taking PTW. But for closing, once the activity is closed, then all the permits which are open should be closed after completion of that particular activity and after the particular time period. So here, after work completion, again project originator initiate work completion by giving back the permit to issuer, stating that the work is completed. Then the issuer will check all the premises. If it is safe, back to the normal condition as before the work is started. Then once the housekeeping is done, equipments are taken out, tools are taken out, the situation is back to normal, then he will give the permit to issuing authority, stating that they have to close the permit. So issuing authority, who is the person initiated the task, he will check if the task is completed by all means, and then they will close the permit. So permit opening and closing is very much important. If the permit is not closed, then it is assumed that the work is not yet closed and is still and they are still working. Okay, so this type of mistake should not be done. Okay, any permit which is open should be closed after the given duration or if the work is completed. Okay, right. So next comes types of permits. So in types of permits, generally we categorize permit into two types. Okay, not more than that. Some say that okay, we are having 8 types of permits, 9 types of permits. Like I said, I mean it is all okay because it depends on the company, it depends on the procedures that they have established. It depends on how they perceive the permit to work system and how they have implemented. If you go to e-permit system, again the mode of operation is a bit different. Not much difference, the basics are same, but it's still a bit different. Okay, it makes things easier to have an e-permit system at our place. So now looking at the type of permit, we basically categorize permit as two types: cold work permit and hot work permit. Cold work permit can also include all the general activities, whereas hot work permit is for the activities, okay, which can produce heats, flames, ignition sources, or any sort of fire and explosion. Okay, so these are considered as hot works. So for hot work, we will have different permit. Cold work or general activities, we will have different permit. The names are different for different organizations, like I said. So there is nothing to be confused of. So apart from this hot work and cold work, we are having several types of additional certificates or additional certificates for different activities. We will discuss regarding that a bit later. So here the cold work permit or general work permit is also called a safe work permit, and HWP is a hot work permit. So what are the contents in the permit? So what are the contents in the permit? So every permit should have a serial number, unique serial number. It should not match with another permits, and it should have a location of activity, and it has to be very precise. Every location should have its own permit. It's not like you can take permit for 10 to 15 locations at a time. Okay, so that is the reason we follow line of sight principle. Line of sight means you can only control so much area that you can really see, and it doesn't mean that you can see 1,000 people and you can control 1,000 people. No. So you can easily control a group of 10 people or 15 people or 20 people at max. Okay, and that too they should be at the line of sight. So location of activity has to be very precise. Okay, and then you have to write the nature of activity. What are you going to do? What are the tools you are going to use, and how many number of people are there to work in that particular group, and what are the tools and equipments that you are using. Okay, so these tools and equipments that you are using, okay, again, so what type of tools and equipments are you using? Then you have to follow additional protocols as to inspecting the tools, that if the tools are safe to work, then only you will have to use these tools. Okay, and equipment has to be third party certified, and then you need to have a method statement. How are you going to execute that particular job? So method statement is nothing but a step-by-step job procedure that we will have to prepare and then get approved from client, stating that we are going to follow this job steps in order to complete this particular activity by using so and so tools and equipments. So by taking this method statement as a reference, then we will conduct HERA for that particular activity or HERA for that particular method statement. So this is a simple risk assessment that we follow, and after the risk assessment is done and approved, then we will inspect all the tools and equipments to check if all the equipments are having third party certificates wherever necessary and tools are in good condition to use. Okay, and similarly on not only tools and equipments, if there is any competency requirements for employees, then we will see if they are adequately trained. If they are not adequately trained, we will train them in that particular procedures. Only after the sufficient training we will allow them to work. So these are simply nothing but the prerequisites of PTW, prerequisites for PTW. These are the things which are required to initiate your work activity. Okay, so after all these things are available, then these things will be put after your reviewing authority or initiating authority, so they will check if all the requirements are met again. So if they are met, then they will sign the permit. Okay, so always remember that every permit has a signatory column where only authorized signatories will sign the permit. Authorized signatories means the issuing authority, permit originator, engineer or permit receiver. So these guys are the authorized signatories as per PTW system. If there is a safety department, if there are any other departments who might have some sort of concerns, means for example, while the maintenance is going on, if there is any other party working on some other system and their work might get affected, then you need to take signs even from those those concerned persons, stating that your job will have no effect or harm on their job as well. Okay, so at the same time we have one more section where issuing authority will give us comments, and these comments has to be followed. And generally permits are valid for 7 days, 14 days, 1 day, or for shift or for a certain period of time, depending on the nature of job, the criticality of the job and the type of job they are doing. Okay, once this validity is over, then you have to renew the permit, or if the work is done before the given time, then you can close the permit. So if there is any extension required, normally the permit is valid for only one shift. So if the permit is valid for the shift, then if you need to work for extra hours, then after the time period you have to apply for extension. If the extension is given, then fine, you can work on it. If the extension is not given, then you should not work on it, because see, after the end of the shift, what happens, your hazards changes. Normally if the working shift is from 6 to 6, it is certainly it has only natural lighting. Okay, but if it crosses 6, the lighting fails, then you need to have natural you need to arrange for illumination. Once the illumination is good, then only you will be able to work on it. So there are some extra hazards which needs to be taken care of after the completion of the shift. So the permit, if there is any extension required, again only with proper protocols or the safety measures implemented, you can have this permit extended for 2 more hours, but not more than that. Okay, so this is about safe work permit, hot work permit, sections of permit, and what is the validity of the permit. Always remember one thing: if the permit is not renewed, that means you should not carry out any activity. Okay, now we will see about the different type of certificates that we have under permit to work. So if you are carrying out any other activities such as excavation, lifting, confined space entry, work inside confined spaces, and then electrical works, isolation, radiation, radiography, and in generally in India we have pharma companies, they use working at height, Okay. So this is very important. If any person is working above 1.8 meters, then we need to have working at height certificate. So these are all called as sub permits or certificates. Okay. Apart from working at height, we have another kind of permit, which is tank filling permit. Okay. So this tank filling permit is most common for loading and unloading of any tanks. Okay, because they might have some hazardous materials or flammable materials, so you need a tank filling permit. And there are other type of certificates also. Depending on the requirement, you can keep more certificates. Okay, the more certificates you have, the simpler the system is, and it is you can control the activities very efficiently. Okay, so in excavation, excavation is just a sub permit, and what are the precautions you are going to take is mentioned in the permit certificate. And second thing is, in lifting, we need a lifting permit, or simple you can have an additional lifting plan in order to carry out lifting, how you are going to do. So when you are coming to confined spaces, we have an additional section which is gas testing, which is a major thing, because in confined spaces what we will do, once the confined space is locked out, then we will go for draining, cleaning, purging, and then ventilation. So then only the safe is safe to enter. Okay, but before going into confined space, we will go for isolation. We will discuss about that a bit later. So now in confined spaces, before entering into space, we need to complete a gas testing. Gas testing will be done by AGT. In this gas testing, we will look for H2S, CO, LEL, and O2. Okay, if these levels are in check, it is okay. Or if these levels are not in check, then we will discuss whether how to enter into the space. Either we need to give proper ventilation, or we need to have a continuous air supply for the people who are entering into the space. So based on the discussions done, we will have additional safety protocols that is mentioned in the confined spaces. And as we have discussed earlier, every confined space has a specific hole watcher. This hole watcher will have another sheet where he will enter the in time and out time. This is called a log sheet. It is must to maintain, and always remember that every permit has its own serial number and it has to reflect on all the permits. Then in electrical works, we have HIPOT and insulation test. We need special permit for that. Isolation, we will go with LOTO, lockout and tagout. Okay, in lockout and tagout, we will ensure that no other person will come and operate it, so that the persons working in that particular line will not get affected or impacted. Okay, so isolation LOTO is a very critical, very important procedure. So we have to make sure all the inputs and outputs for the particular process is completely sealed off from all the energy sources. What are the energy sources? Energy sources like mechanical energy, electrical energy, chemical energy, thermal radiation. So we make sure that these are taken care of. In mechanical energy, normally what happens is, see, even the stored pressure is a very big headache. Okay, stored pressure, what will happen is, with a small momentum, if the pressure is stored, then it tries to come out and runs the machine for quite a small amount of time, and that small amount of time is enough to hurt a person. So that is the purpose. In a mechanical equipment, we ensure that all the stored energy is removed, and we will make sure that it comes back to ZMS state. What is ZMS state? ZMS means zero mechanical state. That means the machine will not be moved, there is no stored energy. Even electricity, what happens is, there is a stored energy everywhere. If there is a capacitor, there is a stored energy. So a small example is, if you switch off the TV, the LED of the TV will blink for some more time, and then only it will goes off. That means there is a sufficient stored energy to run that particular LED. Okay, so now coming to radiography. In radiography, we use X-rays for the purpose of detecting any cracks in the metal, or if the weld is proper or not. So we use non-destructive testing methods. So even for these methods, we need special precautions as to not allow people to come inside the radiography space. It depending on the intensity of the radioactive element, we have separate distances that we need to barricade, not allowing any other persons except the authorized person to work on this radiography and NDT. Okay, So working at height, we know that any work above 1 point height is considered as where we need additional set of precautions. So that has to be worked on. Okay, additional set of precautions means we have three systems, which is fire prevention, fire protection, and then we have two major systems, which is fall prevention and fall protection. See, prevention is always better than cure. So whenever a person is working at height, we will try to restrict the fall. So how do you restrict the fall? So you restrict the fall by providing guardrails. So how you will provide guardrails? Guardrails will be provided at 42 inches high as a top rail and 21 inches high as a mid rail, and then we have it toggled to make sure any loose metals on that particular platform will not fall onto ground, because if any person is walking underneath, then he might get hit by that particular material. So first, prevention is given first priority. Okay, next so next we will see in what cases the permit becomes invalid. Okay, permit will become invalid under these particular conditions. What are these conditions? If any incident or accident has happened at site, then the permit becomes invalid. If there is any incident or accident, then the permit becomes invalid. Okay, second thing, if there is an toxic gas or a flammable gas release, then the permit becomes invalid in a huge quantity. Okay, I'm not just talking about small quantities, I'm just talking about huge quantities. Okay, so if there is any toxic or flammable gas release, then we need to suspend the permit. And third thing is the environmental conditions. If there is any adverse environmental conditions like sudden rain, flash floods, okay, earthquakes, you have your typhoons. Okay, so under these conditions, what we will do? We will suspend the permit by default. I mean, no need to come and say your permit is suspended. By default, the permit is suspended under these conditions. So apart from that, if there is any sort of terrorist threat or a terrorist attack, then your permit becomes invalid. Okay, so these are the reasons when the permit becomes invalid. Only after a sufficient assessment of the work conditions, the issuing authority and the requesting authority will check if the conditions are safe to enter the site to work, then only they will again revoke all the permits, and they will reissue all the permits by signing it again. Okay, so this is about permit to work system. Okay, so one more thing I just want to add is incident accident means any incidents related to fire, medical, collapse of any equipment and all. So this comes under incidents and accidents which are major. Okay, we are not talking about minor things, we are talking about major things. Okay, so thanks for attending this training. We will meet in our next class.